These next 20 minutes are going to absolutely fly by. Nina Lee Aquino is the artistic director of Factory Theatre here in Toronto, and she has plenty of pointers on how to exist as an artist during this time. In this chat, Nina discusses people's appetite for the arts right now, the sustainability of live performances on the digital platforms available to us, and how exactly to measure success during the time of a pandemic. Nina has such an optimistic outlook on theater's ability to survive this latest threat because they've done it before, from the onset of radio to television to the streaming platforms we currently have. According to her, it's because theater creates those ephemeral moments. It's the fleeting ones, the ones that come from the live performances. If you missed it, you kind of missed out. And as always, if you find value in this content, be sure to subscribe to us on social, and more importantly, share it with others.
My name is Nina Lee Aquino. I am the artistic director of Factory Theatre. Factory has been around for about 50 seasons now. We just celebrated, like this year, 2019, 2020 is our 50th season anniversary, actually. And it still remains to this day, one of the few theater companies in Canada that's dedicated to exclusively developing and producing and presenting 100% Canadian work by Canadian artists.
Daniel McIver's House was slated to be the final production of Factory's 2019-2020 season, but due to COVID-19, the production was canceled. Earlier this month, you premiered an isolated version on Zoom. Can you tell me a little bit about that and the journey from physical production to an online premiere?
House is one of our kind of Canadian iconic pieces in theater. Everybody knows Daniel McIver. He is one of our kind of national treasures in Canada, not just Canadian theater, And so we were slated to do House for our last production of the season as part of our anniversary celebrations. House was programmed at at one of Factory's seasons during Jackie Maxwell's tenure when she was artistic director there. So, I mean, each of the plays in our 50th anniversary season is programmed deliberately to pay tribute and honor the legacies of past artistic directors. So, House was going to be kind of Jackie Maxwell's tribute, as well as, really recognizing and acknowledging Daniel McIver's place in Canadian theater history. Never mind Factory's history. So because it was canceled, and I had to make that dreaded phone call that every artistic director had to make, a couple of months ago, that it was going to get canceled because of the pandemic. Daniel McIver, graciously, had the idea of kind of saying, he said, like, if I make a few tweaks, because it's a solo show as well, so that's important to know, that this was not a big ensemble piece. It was going to be a solo show with Kevin Hanchard in the starring role. And Daniel was the one that said, if I relook at it again, which he was going to do anyways, to update the script to, like, it's a 25-year-old script, and he was going to open the script up to updating it to 2020. But also Kevin Hanchard is a Black actor and wanted to really make sure that that Kevin finds his own kind of Victor, which is the title role. He said, if I update it and create it specifically for Zoom, which is the platform that we're using right now for conferencing, would you be interested in doing an online reading of it? And so I said, sure. And so yeah, we talked in March, and we said, well, if we're going to present this online version, let's present it on the night that we were going to open anyways, May 7th. And let's do a one night kind of staged reading of it, and present it to our audiences as a way to just check in and engage. And at this point, we had already done one virtual reading of a new play by David Yee, and that went really, really well. And so again, for the month of May, it's like, let's do another one, and let's make this a staged reading. And because Daniel was outfitting it for the platform of Zoom, it would be easier in many ways, because it's there, it's available, and it's working with the confines of what we're all working with right now. And that's how it came to be. And so, he tweaked the script, and away we go. We kind of rehearsed it, and then we presented it for one night as a live performance in Kevin Hanchard's home, in his basement. And everybody, about 2,000 people tuned in, and apparently loved it. So here we go.
This was a one night show, and
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to be available otherwise. Can you tell me a
Nope.
little bit about the rationale behind that decision?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, that was the agreement. Like, with between our unions, like the Canadian Actors Equity and with ACTRA, is that part of the agreement was it cannot be recorded. But also on my end, it's like, well, that's what makes it live, right? Like, it's a one night thing, it's fleeting, and that's the magic of theater. It's like you cannot capture that moment again. If I put it out there, put out a record, and I know that a lot of people had requested that, and like we say the same thing. Sorry, it was a one night thing. If you missed it, you missed it. Like and it's like anything, a run of any show in our space, people still miss it. Um, and it's the same thing. If you miss it, you miss it. And that is that fleeting moment in time where you saw what Kevin had done, and all the magic was in there. And it just wouldn't be the same if we did say, okay, here's a repeat performance. So no, I mean, I think for us, that's all that we can afford. That's all that really was planned. And yeah, I mean, we didn't really bank on the super duper success. Like, we hoped and wished for the success. Uh, but of course, the response was just so extraordinary. But I don't think I would change anything, to be honest. I love that it opened and it closed, and we move on to the next. Just like theater.
It's exactly that. It's the fleeting moment.
Yeah.
You're lucky to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
You use Zoom for your premiere. How is working with the platform, and how does your role as director translate to digital?
It was a bitch. I mean, I hate Zoom. I will continue to hate it. I mean, it's not theater. It's not the stage. And I think it's important to note that, again, for the purposes of House, it, if it weren't for Daniel really looking at the resources around him, like basically a laptop camera, a chair, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it was all deliberate. We weren't making something out of that wasn't in the script already. And so, with Zoom, it just took a bit of elbow grease, and luckily for me, like, I'm a bit of a tech nerd, so I wasn't afraid to play around with the different functions of Zoom and try things and discover, oh, if I press this button, this is what, like, so I've always been kind of tech savvy that way. So I wasn't afraid to experiment with the platform itself. But as like, it's versus film, if this was actually done with real cameras and like, it's not the same. And again, if it weren't for the fact that the script was outfitted for Zoom, I think we would have a very, very difficult time, and it would be a very different process. But luckily, again, Daniel knew enough of the platform, and I knew enough of the platform to be able to make it work, for what it was. And yeah, and do I know anything more about the digital frontier? Absolutely not. I'm a theater director. I'm a trained theater director. I don't want to go into cameras and all. Like, there are a billion artists before me who have been doing this, who have been doing hybrid works of multimedia and intermedia, of using kind of theater and film and projections that do it way better than I do. And that's not really my forte. And I'm still not really intrigued or interested by it. Again, simply, we all kind of just responded to a script that was simple enough for us to be able to do and play around with and experiment, and it paid off.
What are some concerns and anxieties when it comes to digital adaptations?
Wi-Fi, like, because I mean, our audiences, people don't understand, like, no Wi-Fi is made the same, right? Like, I as a host can have a strong Wi-Fi, but if your Wi-Fi on the other side is shitty, you're still not going to get the same show that I'm able to watch. It could connectivity could drop in and out. There could be lag, that I don't know that you're going through. Audio can cack in and cack out. It's like it's so unpredictable. And mind you, in theater we deal with that all the time, like missed cues. Something happens on stage, and that's the beauty of live performance. But on the digital front, apart from us being in our own spaces and like giving up that control, the one thing that we cannot control at all is the connectivity itself. you know um how to troubleshoot for that, when again on my end, the whole show could go on without any trouble, but somebody watching on the other side can have lots of trouble, and I'm not there to help them through it. So definitely, that was the biggest concern. And knowing that we were coming in with about over 1,000 people tuning in, who knows how the Wi-Fi was going to behave, right? Because that affects that too. So those things, like that I normally don't have to think about when I'm doing a live show, of course I had to think about, and that made me lose sleep a couple of days. But again, it turned out better than we expected, and sure enough, I'm sure there were some technical hitches for some of our audience members. But I made sure to put that in my pre-show speech, that if you're experiencing technical difficulties, you feel free to log in and log out and log back in again, because sometimes that will do the trick. And just bear with us.
You said approximately 2,000 people tuned in. What was the response from your community and your audience?
We trended for a while, because we did the show itself for about 70 minutes, and then we had a Q&A with both Kevin, me, and Daniel McIver afterwards, and a lot of people still tuned in for that, and it was great. We trended on Twitter, both locally and nationally. Amazing response, both through the social media and our email feeds. Amazing feedback from, and not just people from within Canada, but from also a lot of people were able to tune in across the world.
So, how important is experimentation in platform and content right now? And what did you learn from this experience?
What have I learned? I learned that people are really hungry for culture, for art, which is heartening to know. I don't know about this platform, and I said it too in the Q&A, because people are like, what's next? Are we going to keep doing this even when we do go back, to the theaters and whatnot? And all I can really say is, like, again, I'm a trained theater director. I run a theater company, and my artists write for the stage. My actors the actors that we engage and hire act for the stage, and if there's a chance to go back to that, absolutely, I will go back. I will run to the rehearsal hall. I will run to the theater, and that's regardless of the success of some of the online programming that we've been doing. But as far as what we're doing right now, I say, like, and I don't want to put a label to what I just did with House. It is what it is. Like, and some people have, it's a meta play. Like, I don't know. All I know is that we told a story and we reached a lot of people, and a lot of people loved it. And whether there's another one, that's really going to be up to the times and the climate that we're in. And factory is going to keep responding to the times that we're in. And so if that means more playwrights are writing the same way that Daniel did with House, and really thinking about Zoom as a viable virtual stage, then sure. But for me, it has to be deliberate. It has to be on purpose. Like, I cannot just take a play out of, in our canon and just put it on Zoom. It just doesn't work that way. And not all plays can be, translated on Zoom. It's going to suck, so there needs to be thought behind it. It needs to be purposeful. And so, if it means, commissioning playwrights to start thinking about it, sure. But the end game for me is always the return to the stage. And this is great, and we do get to experiment. Artists should be experimenting and pushing artistic envelopes, but for me, the primary driver should still be the stage.
And this brings me to my next question. How do you measure success at this time?
How do we measure success during these times? We don't. Like, what is success during a pandemic? I think the fact that we're just surviving and coping, that's a success, and the fact that we're able to bring a story to a lot of people across the borders, them being able to watch live theater in their homes while eating dinner, while they don't have to worry about babysitting. Well, sure, those are accomplishments, in the moment, but these are tools for us to still, I see them again as just measures to keep our people engaged, and to keep their hearts and souls active. At least they're responding to something. But it's not just like this. I mean, there are, performers, musicians, online dance shows that you can watch, online live streams of other shows, watching, recorded, plays that are put, like, those are great, and people are accessing it, easily nowadays, and that's good. But in terms of the live performance aspect of it, I think that it's okay that we take a break right now. We don't have a choice, and so as artists, we just got to respond with in the most honest and most authentic and genuine way possible. And if that means just taking a pause and not creating anything until 2021, until this is all clear, then that's what we got to do. But it doesn't mean that, we've failed. It doesn't mean that I'm less of an artist if I say, I'm okay to kind of not do anything right now and maybe just incubate and just write many plays. But if it's for the stage, it's for the stage, and let's wait for that right moment rather than forcing it into a medium that it's not meant to be.
It's so refreshing to hear you say that taking a break might be the best approach right now.
Yeah.
Because for so many artists and performers, the idea of not creating or performing, it just fills them with so much anxiety.
Absolutely. And because we are in anxious times, because it's also very much tied to economics, it's tied to validation, it's tied to response, right? Again, artists can, like, theater in particular is a medium where it is all about gathering. Like, we do not exist without witnesses. And unfortunately, this freaking virus is is destroying the very thing that allows artists to exist, and that's the art of gathering. That is the art of communing together, of community, and we're not allowed to do that right now. So, again, how do we rise above that challenge, and how do we adapt to the times? I'm still optimistic, and again, that's why I kind of see what Factory is doing, kind of these online or virtual programming. Like, I'm not, in my mind, like, I'm not set out to it's not a contest on who kind of puts out how many things out there. For me, we put out something where, that we believe in, that we think is meaningful, that we think would be a nice check-in, with our patrons, just to say hello in our own way, to see that, we're here and we think of them, and here's a story that they could possibly just be engaged in for, like, 70 minutes, and just give them something to kind of sink their teeth into. But yeah, it's definitely challenging. But I'm optimistic. I think that, we will go back to the theater. Theater has always been plagued with different kinds of plagues in history, and we're still here. So, whether it's like, the Black Plague back in the day, whether it was the threat of radio and television, we are still here. And we're still fighting. We're still, like, there's nothing that has yet to replace that. Netflix, you name it, it's always been a threat to live performance, and we're still around. So I have faith that, we'll come back.
And finally, Nina, how do we find out what's next? How do we keep engaged with Factory Theater?
We're pretty active on our social media channels. So from the Instagram to the Facebook, like, it's all there. We do have some stuff lined up, but again, we're taking it slow. We're not really in a rush while we're still in this kind of gray, muddy area. when will we open, when will things open up. We're taking our time again to be really thoughtful about what we put out there and make sure that what we put out there is appropriate, that it's, again, it fits the medium of this Zoom conference webinar-esque thing that we're doing, that it doesn't feel kind of we're doing it for the sake of doing it. So we do have some stuff in mind, and usually when we announce, like, there's always like a 2-3 week announcement, and it's on our social media and our website and our, if you're on our mailing list, you will get that invite email letting us know. But yeah, for now we're kind of like we're gonna enjoy our success with house, and then make some new plans in the coming weeks, and then we'll just pop up and go, here's something for you guys to take a look at and enjoy for at least another hour.
Thank you so very much, Nina, for having this chat. It's been such a refreshing conversation.
Thank you.
And I think what you said is absolutely spot on. Slow down, be thoughtful, take a break. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful advice. And it's what we need to hear right now.
We will be back. I mean, I don't know when, but we will. And we're already changed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like whatever we're experiencing right now, that is going to go into our psyches when we start like actively creating again. And so I have faith that, like, whatever this is all recorded data in our souls. And so there's going to be a new wave of different kinds of creation that's going to come out, that's going to be really exciting in response to what we've just all been through, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, never mind form, like that will come. But I think content wise, it's another thing that it's a new frontier that really is the one that excites me and fascinates me, to see like how much of that is going to seep into the works, in the coming years, because this is big. This is, to be in isolation, to be deprived of touch in many ways, of smell, that affects the art making. And for sure our art will never be the same after this. And the many different creative ways of how we're going to think about things, it's going to be more careful, maybe more daring, maybe more, like, do you know what I mean? So lots. And so there's lots to look forward to, as long as you still believe that we're going to get out of this, and I think we will.